Hi, I'm Martin McGrath from Financial Edge Group. We specialise in helping people get themselves sorted for retirement and create wealth, and importantly, transfer that wealth to next generations where relevant. And today I want to talk about a particular instrument we use for investing for kids or grandkids. And typically that's used through an investment bond. Now, I've got another video talking a bit about investment bonds and how they work, so I'll skip over some of that stuff now and just talk about how they're relevant to be used for kids. Not advice, but I actually personally have investment bonds for each of my kids. They're set up that we put an initial amount in there, we put a regular amount in there every month. And rather than just going to a bank account and earning not much interest, it's actually invested into a portfolio, a bit of diversification, a bit of shares in Australia, overseas, a little bit of property, and it's hopefully producing a return that's going to be better than what they're going to get in interest rate in the bank. Now, why I like investment bonds personally, and also the way we use them for clients, is a few different factors. One of those is tax. An investment bond is its own tax entity. So what that means is that the bond itself pays the tax on the earnings. I don't have to declare that in my personal tax return. Any person who holds an investment bond doesn't have to declare the investments in their personal tax return. So there's no complication about, who's paying tax on this income, if it's for a child or a grandchild or something like that. The investment bond covers all that off. There's no issues with the tax that comes with that. So it can stay in that tax environment, and it's usually a pretty good tax rate in there as well. Secondly, there's no limit on how much money you can have in an investment bond. Typically for kids' investment accounts, the HO has a certain requirement that they can only earn a certain amount. That figure changes every few years, but it's not enough. It's not a lot, to be honest. If a child under the age of 18 has more than about 10 grand in investments, typically they start to hit some issues where they're at the top tax rate and they can go to be paying 47% tax on the earnings of their investments. Now, 10 grand's a lot of money for some kids, but over a period of time, for trying to invest for your child and set them up so that when they turn 20, 25, they've got a lump sum of money to do something, 10 grand's not a lot of money. And a lot of people run into issues there where they buy some shares for their kids or something like that. It grows in value and they have that issue. Investment bonds don't have those issues. You can have 10,000 in there, 50,000 in there, 100,000 in there, $10 million in investment bond. You don't have issues around that. Because it's taxed by itself, it's taxed separately, there's no issues with those limits. Whereas typically other kind of investments for kids, you have those issues all the time. The way they can work is you can put in a lump sum as a one-off, just put 5,000 in an account, set it up so that it transfers to the child at a certain age. You can set it up so that you put a little amount in at the start, maybe $500 or $1,000. Different funds have different minimum starting balances, and then you put a regular amount in. Personally, we put an initial amount in, we put in $100 a month into the investment bond. And our intention is to do that every single month for the next 15, 20 years until our kids reach a certain age. At that point, we'll just transfer that to them. Maybe that's a house deposit or a trip or university cost or whatever that looks like. That can be kind of set and forget thing. It's set up, it's investing, it's ticking along, and they're set up as the beneficiary. So if something happens, it's going to go to them, it's their money. But importantly, and I suppose the third part of the why I like the benefit is that it is treated separately for estate planning. So if you're looking to leave some money to kids or grandkids, we actually use it fairly often with a lot of our clients that are retired. They know the kids are going to get their house and different bits and maybe some super, but they want to leave the grandkids, or often in mixed families, different children, certain lump sums of money. An investment bond is the perfect structure to do that because it's set up with its own legal nomination. So if something happens, it goes to that person. It can't be forwarded in a will. It's kind of set up in a certain way. You can also, with most of them, put on certain age requirements and limits. So they can't access that money till a certain age. So you can kind of get pretty creative. And for certain clients, we do strategies around that. So that can be as complicated as you want it to be or as simple as you want it to be. But you can kind of see for some of those reasons there's some really good strategy and creativity we can come up around making sure the money's invested. It's actually getting a decent return. It's not just sitting in a bank account for 20 years doing nothing, but also there's some certainty about when it's going, who it's going, and what age it's going to a certain party. So that's how we like to set up investments account for kids and grandkids under a certain age, or particularly as part of estate planning stuff. If you've got specific questions around that, feel free to reach out. More than happy to have a chat.